Hello everyone and welcome back to a top level game of professional StarCraft 2. My name is Loco and what I've got for you is the grand finals of IEM Katowice, a very special best of 7 series that I can only cast once a year because it determines who the new world champion of StarCraft 2 is going to be. Honestly, this particular series is amazing. It was played last Sunday. I was there, of course, at the tournament as well as one of the commentators. I did not get to cast the grand finals, so I hope you haven't spoiled yourselves just yet, because honestly, this is a fun one. I really hope you're going to enjoy this. So game number 1, we find ourselves on the map Dragon Scales, and spawning right here in the bottom right-hand corner, playing with the red Terran SCVs. We have a man who I think we all expected to be in the grand finals of this particular tournament because he's been dominating the StarCraft 2 scene for many years over in South Korea. The rank 1 Terran in the world, and his name is Maru. His opponent, in the opposite corner, playing here with the blue Terran SCVs. A man who, if you would have asked me leading into this tournament who was going to... I did not think he was going to be able to make his way to the grand finals, okay? From China, we are looking at Oliveira's main command center. Now, in case you haven't watched a lot of StarCraft 2 over the last couple of months, Oliveira is the new nickname of Time, who's been playing well for many years. He's been very strong for a long time, but is he a World Championships levels of good? Now, what I'm going to do, actually, because there's a lot of backstory that I want to discuss leading into this grand finals, I'm going to go ahead and pause the game for just a moment, okay? I think that'll probably make things a little bit easier, because otherwise, I'm just going to completely skip over what is happening in game number 1. Here's the thing. Going into this grand finals, and by the way, I'm going to be spoiling a lot of tournament results here, so I want to be bringing you a lot of these games as well over the next couple of weeks. So if you don't want to get spoiled, maybe mute me for about a minute or so. By the way, if you aren't subscribed to my channel already, I try to bring you, whenever a premier tournament wraps up, I try to bring you the very best games from those events. So make sure you subscribe so you get notified as soon as those videos go live. Because honestly, leading into IEM Katowice, there weren't a lot of replays to cast, but right now there's an abundance of replays from the top level players. So I'm excited for it. But anyways, let's talk about Maru's tournament run leading into the grand finals. Okay, so this was a tournament that had 3 phases, right? So we had the very first round of 36, then we had a group phase in the round of 24, and then we also had a bracket, a single elimination bracket in the round of 12. Maru, because of his yearly results, he managed to seed himself straight into the group stage of the tournament, where he started off losing against Hero Marine 1-2. However, he then won against Björn, Bunny, Classic, Lambo, all 4 of them 2-0. That allowed Maru to move on out of his group in first place, and therefore he seeded himself straight into the round of 8 of the round of 12. He seeded himself straight into the quarterfinals. Maru then won against Solar 3-1, and then he won against Ragnarok in the semifinals 3-0. So honestly, up to this point in the tournament, Maru had barely been tested, and if you've ever seen Maru play a game of StarCraft 2, you've probably seen his face. He was just kind of sitting there playing games. Yeah, very focused, of course, but he was not really showing a lot of emotion. He did not really seem to be having a hard time at all. Speaking of time, though, his opponent, playing right here with the blue SCVs, right? Let's talk about Oliveira's tournament run for just a moment, because honestly, an insane run. So Oliveira, likewise, managed to seed himself straight into the group stage of this particular tournament, where he won against Clem and Cure 2-0. So that's honestly very impressive, because those are some of the best Terran players on the planet. But he lost against Ragnarok 2-0. He lost against Dark 2-1, and he lost against Neep 2-1 as well. What that means is that Oliveira was very close to being eliminated out of the tournament in the group stage. Now, because of his map score, he ended up moving on out of his group in 3rd place, seeding himself into the round of 12. In the round of 12, Oliveira faced off against Hero Marine, and he won 3-1. In the round of 8, he faced off against Raynor, and he won 3-2. In the semifinals, Oliveira faced off against Hero, and he won 3-1. Honestly, one of the most insane tournament runs I've ever seen. He was clearly feeling it. So a lot of those games were played on the final day as well, but winning against Clem, Cure, Hero Marine, Raynor, and Hero in solid games as well. There were very few cheesy matches there, just a conventional amount of cheese, right? As you should in a best of 3 or in a best of 5. He wasn't playing cheesy, he wasn't playing aggressively, he was just playing his A game, and he was playing comfortably. Oliveira talked about how he had been practicing up to 12 hours a day leading into this tournament, and honestly it was showing. He was, well, just showcasing stellar, solid gameplay. And it allowed him to go all the way right here to the grand finals where he's facing off against Maru. But still, right? Maru had been cruising through this event. Basically, every single time Oliveira was facing off against a new opponent, and I don't mean any disrespect, but every single time he faced off against, you know, his next opponent, I was like, okay, this is where his run will probably be stopped, right? Because is he really going to win against Hero Marine in a best of 5? Is he really going to win against Raynor? Is he really going to win against Hero? I mean, all of those players, in my mind at the very least, leading into those series, all of those players were a little bit better than Oliveira, but every single time, Oliveira proved them as well as me wrong. Okay, so now it's time for a best of 7, where he's facing off against Maru. Maru's Terran versus Terran has always been one of his very best matchups. If you want to be successful over in South Korea, you have a lot of Terran players to beat, and Maru has been consistently doing that for about a decade. Honestly, for about a decade. Maru has been participating in the top-level tournaments in StarCraft 2 over in Korea since 2010. So, yeah, he wasn't as good, obviously, in 2010, because he was just a little kid, but these days, considered to be the greatest Terran player ever. Okay, so, let's talk about the games. I don't know how long this video has been going on for, but I haven't actually talked about, you know, this match right here at all. We've got very normal openers here from the both of them, right? Command centers on the low ground are going to finish up eventually. Both players have made a good group of units. This is nothing all too uncommon at all. In TVT, usually we do have those quick double gas openers just because there's a lot of early game shenanigans that the opponent can throw at you, and obviously you can throw it at the opponent as well. It's quite important in this matchup to get your gases going very rapidly too, so you can start up those Ravens. Ravens are changed since the new multiplayer balance patch. They're a little bit cheaper, they're a little bit weaker as well, but they're still incredibly prominent in this particular matchup, as we've seen a lot of times. That being said though, Maru decides to skip the Raven here. He does have a gas going up right now, but he decided to go for a medevac first. So, he's got a nice army right here, leading his troops towards the other side of the map, but he's gonna try and attempt is do a little bit of elevator play. This is a popular build, and it's very, very scary if you're not microing it perfectly. So, Raven is out right here for Oliveira. He does spot this right here in time. Does get a nice lock-on right there on at least one of those Hellions, but nothing really lost right here for Maru just yet, who now gets the Siege Tank up into his opponent's main base. Siege Tank already available here as well for Oliveira, who decided to go for only a single Cyclone, but this is still very scary. He needs to commit on this. There's the auto turret going down right here from our Terran player in blue. He gets the lock-on as well on the Siege Tank, but it does not go down. Excellent micro right here from Maru, and this is sort of what we expected. Maru's Terran versus Terran is absolutely insane. Maru's Terran versus Terran is incredible. SCVs are pulled right now for Oliveira, who needs to try and defend this to the best of his abilities, but for obvious reasons, this is already looking very shaky right here for the Chinese Terran player, because he's lost a lot of troops. 8 SCVs going down is not what you're looking for in the early game at all. A couple more of Maru's units apparently just wandering right there inside of the opponent's natural expansion. But since there's nothing shooting up at this point, Maru can just run around. Well, I mean, there's a couple Marines over here, but he can just continuously be annoying, target fire down a couple more of the low SCVs that he already created for himself earlier. And honestly, game number 1 is Maru from start to finish. Game number 2. We find ourselves on the map Gresven. And since that aggression was working out so nicely for Maru in game number 1, he decides to go for a double proxy barracks right here on his opponent's side of the map. There's a little jump up location right over here. So Reapers, they can jump on this like, I always think of this as like a pie formation. Maybe I'm the only one that sees that, but anyways. He can use those Reapers to get straight into the opponent's main base. And that is exactly what his plan is going to be. Oliveira, no scouting worker towards the other side of the map just yet, so at this point he does not know what he is playing against, and that's exactly what Maru is hoping for. I watched these games from the break room with the other commentators as well that weren't casting the grand finals, and we were looking at each other at this point. We're like, oh god, Oliveira is not scouting. Maru's game number 1 was incredibly dominant. The worst thing that could happen in a tournament grand finals is a 4-0 clean sweep, right? Where one player just seems miles better. And at this point, we were a little bit concerned for that. I can only imagine what the guys in the production room were thinking as well, because they're working on a tournament like this, creating all that B-roll and amazing footage for months leading into a tournament like this. And then, yeah, we were already very far ahead of schedule by like an hour or so. Yeah, those guys were probably not having a good time watching this particular match just yet, because obviously you're always hoping for a very close grand finals, right? Something that is a story that you can actually tell. Otherwise, I mean, Maru winning. Maru doesn't care, right? Maru's not here to play fun games for us. He just wants to win. But anyways, he goes into the main base right now. Luckily for Oliveira, he did go for a reactor right there on the barracks. He's going to be able to start pumping out those Reapers 2 at a time. In this sort of situation, you can probably lose 5 SCVs, maybe 6 or 7, but really no more than that. There is a factory already done here for Oliveira, who did also decide to go for a command center on the low ground right there, building in a natural. 4 workers so far, though, going down. There's a 5th one as well. Good grenade. Oliveira trying to buy time right here until that very first Hellion pops out of the factory. Now that it's available, though, Maru manages to back up just barely. And yeah, these Reapers, they heal up very quickly out of combat, so even though he took a lot of damage, it does not really matter. One thing to note, though, with an opener like this, is that Maru's command center on the low ground is going to be much later, right? So yeah, he's now going to commit to killing the SCV that's building the CC for Oliveira, but this command center, yeah, it's already about, I want to say, 2/3 of the way done. That is going to be a nice economical advantage. Now that 2 Hellions are available, Oliveira decides to take the battle right here to the Terran player in red. Aggressive moves right here. In general, though, good control right there from Maru. I think only losing a single Reaper. Yeah, both players losing a single Reaper. 7 SCVs going down as well, though. That is not what you're looking for at all here as Oliveira. Then again, it's very playable. So as soon as you get 2 mules out, your economy is going to be significantly improved. At this point, the worker count, 25 versus 20. But at command center on the low ground here for Maru, only about a quarter of the way done. Hellion coming across the map. Since the units in blue are waiting right over there, he probably wanted to see if he could still snipe the SCV building the command center, but it's not going to happen. And now with that wall off completed, this Hellion, there's no way, right? Should not be able to go all the way back home. It is, however, a bit of a distraction. Oliveira, yeah, making sure he's not caught off guard right there. But the Reapers for the player in red, they already went all the way back home. Okay. So, now with 2 mules, if you look right here at the income, I'm assuming that, yeah, the income advantage is going to go in favor of Oliveira, despite the amount of workers that he's got right now. There we go. As soon as it updates, the income should look better and better and better right here for our Chinese player moving forward, just because he's producing out of 2 orbital commands right here at once. Maru, at least on the minimap, pretending to have like a supply depot wall. Not gonna happen, however, as he's now forced to just build whatever he can. He decides to go for double Cyclone? Ah, into a medevac. I thought the Cyclones would go into a medevac, but no. It is a 7 Reaper drop from Maru. Units for Oliveira still waiting over here on the high ground, expecting Hellions, maybe a Cyclone, whatever he can, as he now decides to go for a very similar push that we saw in the previous game from his opponent, trying his best to be in a good spot here. That Reaper drop, though, is likely going to be completely unscouted, and it's not something we normally see, but 7 Reapers can 100% destroy a Terran mineral line very, very rapidly. The only problem, though, is if these units are over here, they're obviously not on the other side of the map. And already, yeah, Maru forced to evacuate the low ground. No lift right there on that supply depot as he does decide to commit. Oliveira getting the siege tank in a very nice position as well. There's a siege tank available for Maru. This is his lifeline right here. He needs to try and keep that one alive, but it does not happen. Good shots right there from our player in blue as he deals a lot of damage. Then again, though, those Reapers here on the other side of the map, not perfectly microed. Reinforcing units do clean this up eventually, it seems. But real problem right now for our Terran player is this, right? Maru in the main base, or Maru, well, he's got a main base. Problem here is there's a huge army in blue that he needs to clean up. There is one Banshee available. Okay, good lock-on right there as well on that medevac. Need to move it away. He does move it away right there in time is Oliveira. Needs to be so careful, though. That siege tank needs to be cleaned up. There's not a lot of anti-air available for our player in blue, but that siege tank is putting out so much damage as the other Cyclone also ends up going down. Maru recognizes that without those units, there's no way to continue playing, and he decides to tap out. Next up, we find ourselves on Neo Humanity. This is one of the crazier maps in the current StarCraft 2 map pool. Real quick, in case you're unfamiliar, there's a slow zone right over here in the middle of the map as that SCV, my wonderful assistant, is showing to us. There's a bunch of cooling towers, however, and all 4 of these, they share hit points. Only 500 HP on these rocks in total, and once they break down, they collapse right over here in the middle, shutting down the most obvious attack path. After that attack path is shut down, the only ways to get across the map are either through the left side over here, or through the right side. However, if you have the watchtowers under your control, you can scout all of that coming in relatively easily. Of course, the middle of the map can be opened back up, but you can either destroy these rocks over here or the ones that are over here to the sides. These, however, are quite a bit stronger, and it takes a while to gun them down. So this is an interesting map, not just because of the middle section, but also because of this. There's the golden mineral walls here. So these have 14 minerals in them each, if I'm not mistaken, meaning that it takes a worker unit. So in this particular series, I guess only SCVs, but it takes a worker unit only 2 trips right there to mine at one of these mineral fields, which will give you access to a much easier to defend third base. Furthermore, if we go a little bit forward, there is a base right over here that is rather exposed, unless you kill those cooling towers, I suppose. But there's a base that is rather exposed with a bunch of destructible things right over here in the back with a high-yield gas geyser, which gives you twice the amount of gas income. So this gives you, well, 8 gas for every single trip rather than a conventional 4. This is a map that I honestly didn't expect we were going to see that much during IEM Katowice, but yeah, a lot of the best of 3 series as well. They had a lot of Neo Humanity plays, which is pretty sick. Plus, of course, this is the map with the Supernova Men Club, right? That is something not to be underestimated. There is one on the other side of the map as well, I believe. Because I'm fairly sure, yeah, this has to be the same image right over here on this banner, but can't quite see it. Anyhow, nothing all too crazy, though, from either of these 2 players. A little bit of a different gas timing here in the early game. So this will allow Oliveira to go for a starport eventually, but Maru's is already finished. And this is once again an indicator that he is looking to get maybe a little bit more aggressive, as he does lose one of his Reapers here inside of the opponent's main base. Now, I tried watching a lot of games, by the way, during this particular tournament. I've got a list of games that I made as well. Nice little dance move right there for Oliveira. I've got a list of games as well of matches that I want to cast. But obviously, especially during the first days of the event, there were multiple live streams going on. There was a B stream as well as a C stream, and I believe even a D stream as well for a bit. Anyhow, if you've watched any amazing games, please let me know down below in the comment section of this video, because I will try and bring you the very best games from this particular tournament. I've got a list of like a dozen series that I want to cover, but maybe there are some other matches that you noticed that you think I should really go and check out. So much appreciated if you did watch the tournament live. If you give me any suggestions of games I should probably check out. Anyhow, matter of fact, drop right over here on the right side of the map. This is currently unscouted, I believe. Oliveira not actually reacting, even though I do believe that was in vision. Widowmine here does burrow in time. Okay, well, times mineral line, that is. Haha! Maybe that's why he changed his nickname. Okay, ooh, that detonation right there was not great at all. That matter of fact ends up going down because of it. Cyclone and Hellion having a grand old time, as well as that Raven. Auto turrets are still very powerful. Maybe not as tanky as they once were, but they definitely dish out a good amount of damage. And this start right here is not what Maru was hoping for. Keep in mind that Maru basically decided he wanted to go for a push like that at the very start, since his gas timing was a little bit different compared to Oliveira's. Now suddenly he's finding himself in a pretty tricky situation. His command center is a little bit later than the opponent, and when you're, well, playing a mirror matchup and both players are making the same units, the player with the larger economy pretty much always is at an advantage. That being said though, Terran versus Terran is a matchup that is very difficult to close out, and you'll see some of that as well in the later stages of this particular series. Even when you're in a advantage, right? Even when you do have an advantage and you have a larger army, because of the defender's advantage, because, well, they can siege up tanks, and, you know, Maru obviously sieging up a line of tanks over here would be quite tricky to break. Even when you do have a smaller army and a smaller economy, it's not necessarily game over yet. So TVT is a very tricky matchup to properly decide a victory. Not a whole lot of damage right there coming out of that auto turret from this Raven. Honestly, a little bit greedy right there as well from Maru, because he doesn't really know exactly where the opponent's army is located. Oliveira right now decides to grab the watchtower. Yeah, he wants to see if he can potentially intercept this. If he can, that would be huge. Don't know why he decided to he could have gone straight up to watch the high ground, no? Oh, he decides to scan. Oh, it does get it right there in the end. That scan, though, obviously is the same amount of energy as a mule. But I do think that's still a really good trade right there for our player in blue, who's just rubbing in the wound, right? He's rubbing in the salt right here to make this a little bit more of a painful start right here for Maru. Okay, so when will we likely see a move out right here from Oliveira? Well, he's going for Stimpack. He's already finished that one. He's going for combat shields as well as 1-1. These 3 upgrades right here on the right side of his production tab, they will finish up right around the same time. He's going to make a little bit of a move before that point, but I'm expecting him to try and go for a big engagement right around the same time as all of that finishing up. In the meantime, though, on the other side of the map, Stimpack just finished up right here for Maru, but he does not have combat shields coming up yet. That is something noteworthy here, because he really needs that upgrade. Without it, those Marines just get sniped so much easier. Okay. Sensor tower over here does reveal the movement. Suddenly there's a lot of red blips right over here as Maru decides to abandon that position entirely since his Marines are currently on the other side of the map as well. Interference matrix going on the 2 siege tanks right there in the back as Oliveira starts breaking through. In the meantime, though, there is a big liftoff over here as a ton of SCVs ended up going down on the side of our blue Terran player as well. But every single one of the siege tanks right here for Maru gets killed. Right now, suddenly, he has to deal with a huge army inside of his opponent's natural expansion. Or inside of his own natural expansion, rather. There's the combat shields research happening, but the drop here in the main base needs to be cleaned up still. Maru trying his very best. Lifts up, gets on out of there as he sees another tank sieging up. Good position over there, but he does decide to now head on over towards the natural. Speaking of natural, though, Oliveira slowly pushing his siege tanks in better and better positions. There's a new tank spawning here from Maru momentarily, but already a ton of damage is being done. Ooh, eventually, though, the reinforcing Marines right here for Oliveira, they do kill that medevac. So the aggression right now is merely on the side of our player in red. Suddenly, we see the great migration right here on the minimap. 3rd CC going back to mining as well. There's a new tank that just showed up right here for Maru. Or, sorry, for Oliveira. Well, I guess also for Maru. Although he'd rather have it not there. Anyhow. Yeah, he needs to try and break through this. It's very difficult, though. As long as you have high ground vision, it's difficult to get much done. And Maru right now decides to go for a bit of a desperate move as he goes for a double medevac drop right here. He does not know if the opponent still has the watchtower, but he decides to fly by that location regardless. One Cyclone over here in the middle of the map. Very ambitious, but looks like it's going to be able to deal at least a little bit of damage. That slow zone, though, rather annoying as well. I think Oliveira could continue pushing here. He decides to back off, maybe a little concerned. A little bit of indecisiveness right there for sure. Then again, though, he has not been sending all of his reinforcing units across the map, and at least he is going to have an army to try and deal with this medevac drop right here from the player in red. Liberator up in the air. Love this little move right here for Maru. Maru, of course, a very scary defensive player. There's the medevacs being targeted down as well. A little bit of indecisiveness once again, though, here, as he does snatch it right there in the end. Very greedy plays here. Maru trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Okay, there's the Liberator once again, slowly sieging forward. He can't really, get underneath it because then these siege tanks are going to start shooting across. Instead, right now, Oliveira, decides to move the siege tanks right here to the bottom of this ramp as he goes for a little bit of elevator play. These tanks here for Maru are going to be able to hit quite far. Okay, does he find an angle right here? No, he does not quite find the perfect angle to kill that Liberator. That Liberator has been incredibly annoying as he once again repositions. Does Maru have enough? Maru trying his best to break out of this position once again. Cleans it up, man. Maru, very scary defensive player. A lot of Terrans try to copy exactly the way that he plays it, but you gotta be so on point. Especially that 1-2 punch with the Liberators and the siege tanks. It is not easily done while you're trying to manage everything else that's going on as well. Right now, though, Maru still knows that he's in an economic deficit, right? He knows that his economy is not nearly as great as the opponent's. Sure, he killed a lot of SCVs, but that 3rd command center has been up and running again for a little while. Okay, middle of the map, completely ignored right here by Oliveira, who's once again making a move for the opponent's third command center. The rocks are going to get knocked down over here, though, and Maru is ready to get aggressive. The sensor tower here is going to pick this up right now, so Oliveira knows what he's playing against, but he decides to commit to the counterattack instead. Command center right here on the side of Maru ends up going down pretty much immediately. The CC really needs to get on out of there as well. If he is not careful, he's going to end up losing that one too. But once more, we have a little bit of a base race going on. Oliveira's reinforcements are mostly left at home as he tries to commit right now. CC's still alive. Liberator up in the air, being as obnoxious as possible. But there's not enough available for our blue Terran to clean this up with just the reinforcements. Then again, though, in the meantime, on the other side of the map, the command center right here on the low ground ends up going down as well. Oliveira's army is much too big. Maru knows that he's not going to be able to come back here. Next up, Babylon. As you can see by the production tab, as well as the bottom of the screen, identical build orders from both of these players. Both of them decide to scout their sides of the map right now to make sure that there's no proxies happening, but everything is a-okay. Haven't mentioned it yet, by the way, but for this particular tournament, $500,000 was on the line. $150,000 for the first place prize. $71,000 for the second place prize. Not entirely sure why it's 71,000. Would have been nice if it was 100,000 as well, but yeah, 150k for first, 71k for second. Certainly not a bad number whatsoever. Maru, of course, one of the very few StarCraft 2 millionaires. Well, he's been at that level for like a year or so at this point. And he's been, yeah, pretty dang successful over the years. It's my favorite part about pro gamers, man. Some of them have been financially very successful over the years, but they seem to live the most simple lives. At the very least, many of them just sort of relax and, you know, a lot of them, I guess, could be considered gamers, right? Where they will buy a new computer. But you can buy a very good computer for a couple $1,000s, and at that point, you still have a lot left over in the bank. At least when it comes to some of these guys. Anyhow, let's see. Oliveira getting a little bit adventurous, getting to his opponent's side of the map. I gotta say, though, in that previous game, that was a proper high-level match. In that previous game, his decision-making was excellent. It's very difficult to pull the trigger. What you gotta imagine as well is that these guys have a lot of pressure on their shoulders. Both Maru and Oliveira have been dreaming of being a StarCraft 2 world champion for, well, probably about a decade. So, yeah, competing on stage with a large crowd in front of you, right? With tens of thousands of people watching live, it is not so easy. Okay, good movement right there from Oliveira, at least damaging one of those Hellions and now grabbing the kill as well with one of his, he damaged one of the Reapers, now getting one of the kills right there as well with the Hellions. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit sleep deprived, okay? I don't know if I've been calling the units wrong in this particular series so far. I feel like I have. Anyways, Siege Tank drop right now in his opponent's natural. Maru trying to get a lot of damage done. Good lock on though with that Cyclone. Grabbing that kill very easily. These mules really need to go back to mining. At the same time, though, the Reapers and the Hellions, they've been trying to be as obnoxious as possible as they do now get cleaned up. In the end, more losses on the side of Maru. Maru getting the short end of that trade for sure. And once again, I feel like it's because of the fact that his medevac got sniped. Vikings up in the air right now. Very nice, of course, but would have been better to have them protecting that medevac earlier. Now suddenly, Oliveira is in a very nice defensive position. Siege Tank, okay, getting a shot in, helping that Cyclone out to kill the Hellion as well. There is a drop going into the main base. At least these, well, Vikings can drop down to the ground and maybe shoot away at those SCVs momentarily, but this is not really a position that you can push in very easily at all. Jimmy has been told over here to patrol back and forth for a little while. He doesn't realize that he's the bait. Oliveira is going fishing right now. It's a little sad, but anyways. Maru wants to get a scout off of the opponent's main base to figure out exactly what he's playing against, and he does get that Reaper in. Wonderful job right here by our Terran player in red. Good little bit of SCV control here as well. They're trying to heal up these units, but still, one of the workers ends up going down. Maybe two of the workers. Nah, just one. Okay. Maru going Siege Tanks and Vikings at this point. With Siege Tank Viking, you can go for a very nice push. But obviously it doesn't have nearly as much longevity, right? At this point, he does not have Stimpack done yet. As a matter of fact, he starts it up right now. But that upgrade is gonna be a while until it finally finishes. Oliveira, already ready to go for some aggression once again. If we look at the siege tank count, it's 4 versus 2. Those traits from earlier really hurting Maru quite a bit. Interference matrices are available as well on that Raven. He does not decide to use it right there, okay? Interestingly enough, he gets that siege tank for free. Decides to go for a couple auto turrets right now in his opponent's natural. These things deal a lot of damage, plus they soak up a couple of those siege tank shots. There's another tank going down. One more tank available right here for Maru. That one also falls. GG is called. And Oliveira has a shot at winning the World Championships. Next up, we find ourselves on Ancient Cistern. I don't know about you guys, but I am experiencing nerd chills all over again. The fact that Oliveira, seemingly coming out of nowhere, is leading this grand finals right now, and he's potentially becoming the world champion of StarCraft 2, absolutely insane. I just want to highlight... Okay, so first off, let's talk about the odds, okay, that Aligulek predicts between these two. Aligulek predicts a 87% chance for Maru to win a best of 7 against Oliveira. Those stats are nuts. That takes into account all of the games that they've played over, well, the last year or two, and it's just a clear indicator that Maru is the favorite going into a series like this. I also just want to emphasize that the best tournament result that Oliveira has had up to this point is, I guess, maybe like winning a couple of the you know, smaller Chinese regionals. So he's been basically winning every single Chinese regional for a long time, but then eventually he seems to get eliminated in the main events. Whereas for Maru, I mean, the list of tournaments that Maru has won, it doesn't really stop, man. He has won so many GSL Code S's. He has so many... He won the WESG for like 200k as well at some point. I mean, just an insane tournament run for such a long time. And in my mind, going into this finals, it isn't even close. Maru, once again the aggressor here. Sending units across the map, but he finds a bunker. He also decided to go for an SCV scout in this particular game because, well, at this point his tournament life is on the line and there's really no corners that can be cut anymore, or at least not very safely. Oliveira, though, opening up once more with a macro game. Going for the 1-1-1 on the back of this. CC on the low ground is nice. It's going to finish up a little bit later for Maru, who's almost forced to play a little bit more of a safe match here, as he's once again ready to get a little bit aggressive. Medevac coming up. We have a bunch of units that will be ferried straight towards the other side of the map here very soon. There we go. Okay. It's once again up to Oliveira to defend against this. Maru setting the Hellions in creative paths, or one of the Hellions and the Reaper here in creative paths towards the other side of the map. At this point, it's all unscouted. Oliveira doesn't know what he's playing against, but he is confident in his abilities. He mentioned that he's been playing 12 to 15 hours a day leading into this particular event. So the man's clearly been putting in the practice, and he knows these maps better than anyone else, it seems. Yep, this push here for Maru just gets pushed back. Absolutely no problem. Ancient Cistern is a map with a rather long rush distance, so maybe on like a Babylon, this sort of aggression would be a little bit scarier, but yeah, on a map like this, it seems that Oliveira can push it back rather easily. Maru normally very good with this sort of aggression, right? He's very strong when it comes to his aggressive gameplay, and that's usually how he wins the majority of his matches. Marine right there in the front, being sacrificed. 2 tanks, though, available here for Oliveira. Not really a way that you're going to be able to break this. There's already a Viking up in the air as well, just in case there's an ambitious Raven, or maybe even a Liberator right now for Maru. That would be a little bit nuts, but at least he's got an answer for something like that as well. Even though he's been under a lot of pressure here for a while, Oliveira decides to now start up his 3rd command center, as he hasn't really taken any damage yet, and he's feeling comfortable. He's going to scout out the top section of the map, make sure that there's no hidden bases right here for the Terran player in red, because yes, he's seen a couple units, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a command center hiding somewhere in the corner. He would like to know if there's a 3rd CC, but I guess he's going to expect it to be taken right over here as he goes into the natural, and seeing the gas timings right there is not really anything to be ignored. He knows right now that he's likely playing against a Terran player that's got a 3rd CC. Reaper is going to get sacrificed, but at the same time, Oliveira is now going to test the waters on the other side of the map. Chinese fans absolutely losing their minds at this point. Especially after Blizzard recently shut down the Chinese StarCraft 2 Battle.net servers, and, well, all of Battle.net in general. I don't know if, I don't think I've talked about that yet in previous videos, but they couldn't reach an agreement with NetEase, and because of that, they have stopped operating entirely over in China. So Oliveira, yeah, not having a very easy practice time at all, because, well, the servers that he likes to play on no longer exist. And then he comes out here, man. He comes out swinging. Okay, slow pushing right now with the siege tanks. Trying to get a chokehold right there on this third command center. 4 siege tanks available though here as well for Maru, but one of the tanks here for our player in blue is in the right place. Getting a little bit of damage done. He does need vision. Yeah, he doesn't have enough vision right here. Okay. Lock on right here. Try and shut this down. He needs to be careful though. Okay, he decides to commit right now, dropping once again the auto turrets forward. Honestly, feels a little bit overly ambitious, but at the very least, it's gonna force those SCVs to abandon their mineral lines temporarily. Well, make that permanent, because every single last one of them ends up going down here. The position, though, has not really been won just yet, and it seems to me that our player in red, well, as the Vikings land, maybe that's a little bit scary still. Yeah, I think our player in red, though, should be able to break out of this position here eventually, but at the cost of a lot of expensive units. Then again, though, excellent pickup micro right there for Maru, keeping the majority of his siege tanks alive, and in the end, that wasn't really the trait that you're hoping for right here as Oliveira. Maybe the nerfs coming into the game as well for a little bit, right? You're obviously thinking about the fact that no one's ever won a... Like, no Chinese player has ever won a tournament like this before. Chinese players in general have been good, but not, you know, Koreans' level of good. Koreans have been dominating StarCraft 2 ever since, well, like 1998, right? Ever since StarCraft 1. So, yeah, Oliveira knows right now that he's carrying not just his own games, but also his entire nation on his shoulders. I guess a lot of the Warcraft 3 players from China are very good, right? Yeah, at least historically speaking, the Chinese players have not been as successful in StarCraft 2 as they have been in some other RTS games. Anyways, now it's Maru's turn to try and test the waters on the other side of the map. Does he have enough? Stimming forward right here are those Marines. He's trying to go after the bunker. Not really a huge fan of this little push over here forward, unless he kills the siege tanks. One of the medevacs ends up going down. Excellent control right there from Oliveira. His defensive play is so clean. Like, he just sent a couple SCVs, like, yep, this is all I need. That siege tank over there on the left is going to be fine. Starts up another command center in the middle of all of this. There's some confidence happening here, right, in this game. Actually insane. Vikings right now landing on top of a tank. They're going to be able to pick that off if they target it down. There you go. That bonus to mechanical, quite nice, though. Those siege tanks are getting a lot of good shots in right there on the left side. And Oliveira manages to hold for now. A lot more Terran units, though, making their way towards the other side of the map. 4th command center building right here for Maru on location. So he is planning on being the aggressor for a little while longer, knowing very well that the opponent is not going to be able to send a lot of units here towards the other side of the map. Sensor tower at this point is done. Excellent position on that one once again. So at this point, look at that. Oliveira sees where the army in the red colors is coming from. Needs to be careful, though. Okay, is he gonna commit? Yeah, he does commit. Maru right now, once again, hits the Stimpack button. Very aggressive movement right here. He's trying to obtain the victory in this match right here, right now. Couple SCVs pulled away from their mineral lines once again. The tanks have, however, already gone down. Okay, this command center, maybe a little bit too ambitious. At this point, I believe that it's gonna have to be cancelled and maybe remade. At the same time, though, matter of fact, drop here on the other side of the map, trying to do as much damage as possible. That explains the lack of Marines right there for Oliveira, as he loaded them inside of medevacs. A lot of SCVs are once again finding their graves over here. This army is not likely to go back home. That medevac is not likely to go back home either. But at least Oliveira manages to deal some damage on the other side of the map, as he's now killed 26 SCVs here in total. All the while trading cost efficiently because he's been the defender. Okay. Now apparently he's like, you know what I need? A command center right here at the 3 o'clock position. Obviously this one is later though. Maru going for a planetary fortress right here at the 9 o'clock. So he should be able to keep up with the economy very nicely right now. Oliveira has been ahead in that department, but now with this faster 4th command center, I do believe Maru is going to feel pretty comfortable. +2/+2 upgrades, also going in favor right here of our South Korean legend. And in the meantime, we have a stuck SCV right here. No, maybe it can, I don't know if it can leave. Anyways, he is going for 2/2 as well, but Oliveira's upgrades are a little bit later. Obviously, in these battles, when it's mostly just Marines, those upgrades are huge, right? Since every single one of those Marines, they benefit from every single one of those upgrades. Okay. That's not gonna happen. No, 1 siege tank, not that scary, but a planetary fortress is terrifying, and there's a couple more tanks right there on the back. Oliveira does have a watchtower over here. So he sees, once again, a lot of red action there. I think that Maru could have tried, but you'd never really know exactly how much is hiding in that position. Okay, these armies just about to meet in the middle of the map. Maru, once again, bringing a lot of units forward here. Okay, this is a nice engagement, though, for Oliveira, as he now snatches at least a couple of those Marines before the fight really takes place. He decides to meet his opponent in the middle of the map. Right now, a couple of the Marines are split off from the main pack. Those siege tanks, though, are dealing so much damage, but the same can be said right here for the ones in blue, as both players absolutely wipe out their Terran Marine armies. Siege tanks alone, though, aren't going to cut it, so that move forward right there for Oliveira works out very lovely for him, as it now allows him to go for the planetary fortress here at the 3 o'clock position. Maru, though, doing Maru things. This is where Maru is generally considered to be the scariest. I would say he's probably the scariest player in the world when it comes to playing from this sort of spot. When he's ahead and, you know, he's in a solid macro game, he's capable of making all of those command centers. This is Maru's comfort zone and where he likes to be most of the time. Even though he's been playing rather aggressively in this series, I wouldn't mind seeing him, yeah, going for something like this a little bit more frequently here, because he's very, very good at it. Now, obviously, it's a best of 7. Playing 7 half-hour-long games is maybe not necessarily the best choice either, because StarCraft 2 is very much so a stamina game as well. Keep in mind that these players, they played some of the matches that I mentioned earlier on the same day as the Grand Finals. So they've already been at the venue for a long time. Anyways, Maru right now, stemming forward. He catches his opponent off guard here, as there's not that many units available yet. A lot of tanks here for the, for the Terran player, but he's not, like for the red Terran player that is, but he's not really getting them in the best spot. Decides to now ferry them over this little ledge here, gets them into a much better position, and I like this a lot. At the same time, though, there's a little bit of a medevac drop here. This one is going to go after the command center. It looks like Maru is going to end up losing a CC here. Big drop right here. A doom drop with Marines on top of siege tanks. Maru ends up losing quite a few of them. Jimmy and Mark, they're going to absolute town. And since these siege tanks were disconnected from these over here, Maru ends up losing quite a few of them. On top of that, he also lost that command center right here on the left side of the map. 3-3 upgrades. At this point, faster for Oliveira. Sure, Maru still has a small supply lead. It's mostly in attacking units. But most of these fights seem to be going in favor of Oliveira, who just knows the map a little bit better. That tank drop over there was awesome. If these siege tanks over here would be able to aid the siege tank, it's a very dangerous play to make. Anyways, now Oliveira is the one who feels a little bit aggressive. He finished up his 3-3. He's scanning his opponent's army. He's definitely clicking on one of those Marines in red as well to figure out where the upgrades of his opponent are at currently. If he sees that he's ahead, he may very well be able to commit. Maru, though, tries to now chase this army around, as we have the one giraffe boy right over here, okay? I was gonna say, if you're gonna go through that choke point, that is very dangerous, but we have the Tastelope over here, skittishly running around, trying his best to steer clear of this battle. Okay. This is the chess stage of playing Terran versus Terran, right? Where both players have the exact same units. Both players very well know that these siege tanks can shoot away further than they can see, so vision is super important. You can do that with scans, you can do it with Vikings, but you need to get some sort of advantage somewhere. Okay, this is apparently Maru now moving forward, stimming all of his units though, and that definitely shows some nerfs, because that is a lot of energy that's going to be wasted right here on those medevacs, or, well, maybe the Marines are going to get wasted as well if they decide to commit before they're back up to full HP. Maru wanted to grab this opportunity, but he saw at the last second that it wasn't possible, as he decides to now retreat. New command center, done right here for Maru. These guys are now very close to one another, though, as Oliveira now also goes for a planetary fortress up here. Keep in mind that you are spread very thinly at this stage of the game, right? So these units, they are rather fast, but they're not Zerg levels of quickness, right? They're not going to be able to move around the map very rapidly here compared to Zerg. So you got to be careful. You split your units in reasonable numbers. Apparently for Oliveira, that means leaving a couple of those siege tanks over here and getting a few missile turrets out as well to prevent this exact move. Maru, however, yeah, he gets here right before most of those medevacs, or all of those medevacs, end up going down, and now the Marines are also going to get wiped clear. But this is mostly just a distraction, as Maru right now is setting himself up for a potential move right there to the natural. He scans, he does see some of his opponent's army, but not all of it. Does commit right here. Liberator goes down, Raven goes down, Siege Tank goes down as well, as Maru once again disengages. Most importantly, though, Oliveira still has the base over here at the 12 o'clock position. Building armor, high-sec auto tracking, all of the least important upgrades right now are finishing up for Maru. They're nice to have on the planetary fortresses and on the missile turrets and all that, but not the most critical upgrade to get. Same time, we do have the mech upgrades here happening right here as well for Oliveira, as he's trying his best to also go for the advanced ballistics. That is the Liberator ranged upgrade. So one thing you can do when you have that air superiority, right? So Oliveira right now leading this with about 5 Vikings. You can go for Liberators too. Then again, there's 5 Ravens available right now for Maru versus only 1 for Oliveira. Those anti-armor missiles, they're scary. Obviously, they did get nerfed a little bit. And the auto turrets, they're scary as well. Obviously, they got nerfed a little bit too. Interference matrices, also technically nerfed a little bit, but still a very scary thing right here for our player in blue. I mean, he needs to be worried at least of his siege tanks getting disabled. Okay, there's one Raven going down. There's the anti-armor missile, though. Anti-armor missile as well on the other side of the map. Not every single one of these Vikings are affected by it, but Oliveira has a very nice superiority there, forcing his opponent to unsiege right now. That now allows Oliveira to start sieging his tanks a little bit further forward. He has to move this once again. Liberator's getting into good positions because of that advanced ballistics upgrade. He is ready to commit right here, but he wants to push Maru into that wall. Siege tanks in the back can start, slowly moving forward as well if they are feeling brave enough. Command centers in the meantime, by the way, going into the middle of the map as well. Bottom right-hand corner now acquired here by Maru. Another siege tank ends up going down. There's another one. There's one more taking a ton of damage, and it also falls. Oliveira trying to choke out his opponent right now, and with a nickname like that, it might be appropriate too. Now he stims all of the Marines forward since the siege tanks are gone. Command center ends up going down. At the same time, though, huge anti-armor missile right there on all of those Marines. Another tank ends up going down right here on the left. The Marines, though, in red, don't want to engage because Oliveira still has the vast majority of his siege tanks in this position. Down south, we have a planetary fortress. This has been spotted by Oliveira, who now sieges one of those Liberators on top of this location, and that is going to make it much more difficult. Marines trying to help out in this battle as well, as Maru now wants to have that air superiority. If he has the air lead, he can get rid of those Liberators very easily. A lot of denying, though. 12 SCVs have gone down here as well. Okay, he needs to be careful. Don't lose Vikings for free, please. You can't afford losing Vikings here, Maru. Siege tanks right now getting into a good position, and are going to be able to get rid of that planetary fortress in a heartbeat. Liberator is going to end up falling here, but I think it's a good trade. 12 SCVs plus a planetary fortress, not bad at all. Might not be the time yet to land that command center here, Maru. Okay, well, he decides to make that move regardless. Maybe a little bit of tournament fatigue here as well, coming out of our Korean player, as he does lose another command center. Okay, in the meantime, Oliveira has been happily macroing up. He's been taking the majority of the bases on his side of the map. There's a couple of interference matrices, though. Is he going to commit? No. Maru does not really want to commit still into that many sieged-up tanks. I think it's about time for Oliveira to disengage and go back home, because he's done a lot of damage. Well, I say that. Medevac drop inside of the main base, just to kill a couple of add-ons, all right? A couple of reactors. Not bad at all. Okay. He now finds the base in the bottom right-hand corner as well, and that is absolutely tremendous. Taking this one down would be huge, but it's going to take a moment. Maru right now thinking about going for a counterattack, it seems. Most of the siege tanks here from Oliveira are occupied. He now scans the top left and he sees, okay, there's nothing over there. I think this could be an opportunity for Maru to go straight across the map, yeah. Then again, though, there are siege tanks available defensively here as well for Oliveira. Careful, careful, careful. Okay, very big stim right here once again from Maru, who wants this army to back off. Now he's committed to Stimpaks, though. Interference matrices do shut down a lot of the tanks right here in blue, as Maru now strikes back and grabs quite a few of them. Siege tanks over here in the back dealing a ton of damage as well. 10 SCVs have gone down, but I don't think that's really the biggest of Maru's problems right now, as he needs to try and, well, get more damage done with the army that he's got right now. Okay, there's another anti-armor missile. Those Ravens putting in a lot of work, but the Viking count, I don't think it's big enough. Maru has bled a couple of those out over the course of the last couple minutes, and it turns out he really needs them right here, right now. But obviously, they are nowhere to be seen. Then again, though, positional advantage right now for Maru. Trying to strike back. CC on the low ground, going to be difficult to keep that one alive if Maru decides to commit. There's a big stim forward again, or, well, a small stim, I guess. Dealing a little bit of damage. Now he decides to stim once more. Oliveira's reinforcements have arrived. There's another anti-armor missile. Immediately forced to back off. He needs to reposition those tanks from the bottom, and they do get into a pretty juicy spot again. With the air advantage, though, Oliveira, yep, bringing the Liberators out once more. It makes it very difficult for this army to push forward. Pushing into Liberators and siege tanks, yeah, you can't really do it. You need one or the other. Now think of the implications of Oliveira winning this series. The Chinese market is absolutely massive. Generally speaking, whenever a player wins, right? For example, if Saro ends up winning this, there's a huge surge of interest in Finland, right? The Chinese market is absolutely massive. There are so many people over in China. There's a lot of very wealthy people over in China as well. So for StarCraft 2's future, it would be amazing to have a Chinese world champion for the very first time, especially with a story as beautiful as Oliveira's here. Oliveira right now, once again, moving forward. Trying to get on top of his opponent's natural right now. Most of the army right here from Maru, way off to the right side of the map, ready to kill one of the 17 planetary fortresses or so that Oliveira has at this point. Oliveira gets into the opponent's main base. If he sieges this location, that's exactly what he decides to do right now. That base on the right side just served as bait. It's going to be so difficult right now for Maru to break this position. There's the anti-armor missiles, though. The anti-armor missiles dealing a lot of damage here as it shuts down those siege tanks. Is there enough for Oliveira to clear all of this up? It is not. No, Maru manages to keep his natural and his main base alive, and that is super critical, but that did come at the expense of 35 SCVs. A lot more command centers here available already for our Chinese Terran player. Command center here on the right side end up going down. Maybe that's a little bit overly ambitious. So that's another kill right there for Maru. Not bad at all, but Oliveira now leading the supply count substantially. He wants to mine the base over here in the top left. Knock, knock, who's there? It's a massive Terran army in blue, as once more Oliveira is reinforcing the position right over here. He has been outplaying Maru in a macro game over the last 20-something minutes. He's been doing a phenomenal job. Couple of shaky decisions as well, but who can blame him when there's this much money and this much honor on the line? Finally getting some of his upgrades that he should have gotten quite a while ago. I think that would have made things quite a bit easier for him. Either way, though, siege tank count still looking dangerous right here for Maru. 11 siege tanks for the South Korean, 6 siege tanks right here for the Chinese player. Is there enough for Maru to push in? He still does not have that air superiority, right? And that is so dangerous. So scary. Those Liberators just don't mess around. With advanced ballistics in particular, with the upgrades that they've got +2 flyer attacks. They deal so much damage. Okay. Vehicle plating level 3. Finished up right now for Oliveira. Going into the +3 flyer attacks too. One change you can go for in the ultimate late game is battle cruisers, although Oliveira might not be able to... He might not be wishing to get to that point, right? He probably wants to try to win the game before he gets there, because that would mean that Maru manages to stay alive for a little while longer. Okay, scan forward right here. Both players see the opponent's army. Maru decides to siege up all of those tanks, making it very difficult right now for Oliveira to engage. There we go, though. Oliveira sees the opponent's units on siege. Couple of siege tanks right there in the back. Marines caught behind the tanks as well. There's a couple of the siege tanks getting temporarily disabled too. An absolute bloodbath right here in the middle of the map, with Oliveira grabbing a massive lead. It forces Maru to GG out. And Oliveira, also known as Time, is your new StarCraft 2 World Champion.